Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I am excited because today I'm joined by the founder of the Queer Screams Horror Film Festival, JT Seaton. JT, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me.
And thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Well, we are so excited and honored to be one of the sponsors for this year's program, amongst a group of amazing sponsors as well, including our peers on the horror journalism front. Before we get too far into my questions, I just want to tell some folks a little about you. You know, you are a filmmaker from Bakersfield, California, who now resides in Portland, Oregon. This isn't your first festival you founded either. You were you were the founding member of the NOLA Horror Film Festival, which ran for 11 years. And now you're heading up the Queer Screams Festival out in Portland. So this is exciting to not only see you do this once but twice, but also have some time to talk to you about your experience here.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, this is the Queer Screams was kind of almost like an offshoot a little bit of the NOLA Horror Film Fest in New Orleans. Um, in 2020, NOLA Horror Film Fest was listed in Movie Maker magazine's top 50 genre film festivals in the world, and which was a great honor. We were very,
yeah.
very pleased to do that, to receive that honor. But in that little article in the blurb about the festival, they mentioned that we had a focus on LGBTQ horror and women in horror, and that was really great because that was something that I definitely wanted to do with NOLA Horror Film Fest, was to open those avenues exploration into those topics and those artists. So when I moved up to Portland and decided that I'd rather do a film festival in a city that I live in, since I did not live in New Orleans ever, but yet I ran a film festival there, I decided to focus on that aspect of the article that was focusing mostly on LGBTQ horror.
Well, I think it's an amazing pivot, and I think there's been a growing amount of support for not just LGBTQ films and filmmakers and creators, but also just the awareness of festivals that are curating specifically for not just that audience, but really having a focus on those themes and those creators explicitly. We just had the Soho Horror Film Festival, which I know you have submitted, and even I think you believe some received some awards from them in the past. Is that correct?
I don't think we received awards, but we did screen.
Okay, screened. Well,
I screened
um,
with them.
that's farther than me and a lot of other people who love to talk about movies have ever gotten. When you think about, you mentioned that kind of you wanted to focus more on the LGBTQ, community and how they represent in genre, but it sounds like you also got started at an interesting time, right? Was this festival founded in 2020? Shortly after, is NOLA still doing its thing, or is it no longer it's now defunct?
NOLA is no longer doing its thing. I was primarily the spearheader of that. And while I had some really amazing people on the ground in New Orleans helping me out, they were not as passionate about the festival as I was. So when I decided to step away, there wasn't really anybody to hand the baton off to. So it just kind of, shut its doors. Um, and that was 2021 when we did that, because
Okay,
we did do a 2020 version of NOLA Horror Film Fest where obviously it was virtual like
right.
everything, which was, ugh, I would never do again. I- It was three times the amount of work as doing a live event,
I
trying
can
to do
imagine.
it. It was a lot of work. And yeah, I'll never do that again. I also don't, even though, yeah, there are some festivals. There are some events that happen just strictly online, and I really hesitate to call them film festivals because for me, a film festival is an in-person event that engages the community,
Right.
and I don't think that online events engage the community the way that a physical in-person festival does. And while I think there is a place for online presentation of films, from a festival, I think that film festivals should be that. They should be festivals. They should be in person. They should be, community based and growing. And that's what we try to do here at Chris Screams. It's very community based. Um, it's not just movies. I have, since the very beginning, I've had drag performance artists perform at the festival, burlesque performance artists. We have musical artists. This year, we're bringing in a couple of DJs to spin some vinyl before some of the screenings. Yeah, so we're basically trying to create a community event that incorporates these LGBTQ horror films.
Well, I would end up agreeing with you. I think that, there is something to the in-person experience because having attended some, online festivals versus going to them in person, it is different. You don't get as much of the ability to network and interact with your peers. And, obviously movie going is, as much as it can be an individual experience, it is very much improved oftentimes with the collective enjoyment of others. So watching a movie that everyone's seeing for the first time at the same time is something that you don't get all the time. And so that being able to capture those moments with, people that, are of similar interests, and trying to establish community, I can definitely see why that's so important. And, how has working within the city of Portland been for this kind of festival? I mean, Portland's such a great place culturally, um, but we don't know, at least there's not as many festivals that we're aware of, right, that happen out in the Pacific Northwest, aside from, Seattle and Portland being the major hubs. But what's it like planning a program in such a wonderful city?
It's actually been very fantastic. The city of Portland is, and the community, particularly the queer community, has been very supportive of the festival. We have had really good attendances, since the very first season. And, having started NOLA Horror Film Fest, uh, on a terrible weekend in New Orleans, in a terrible location, and knowing that a lot of first-time film festivals, have a very low attendance because there's no track record. Nobody knows what
Yeah,
they're getting into, and so they're not going to just rush right out and see a bunch of new horror movies. But from the very get-go, we've had quite a lot of support from the community. The Clinton Street Theater could not be a better supporter and partner for the festival. That means they really are a partner of the festival. A lot of venues, most venues, don't really care about the film festival. They just
huh.
want you to rent their space, give them the money, and leave them out of it. And the Clinton Street has been very supportive, very, hands-on, very involved, and, so much so that I would consider them a partner in this endeavor. And that's something that I don't think I would have found in any other city. I mean, definitely not Los Angeles.
Right.
Everybody,
It's
has
hard.
their hand out in Los Angeles, and doesn't want to be involved or doesn't want to do community events. They just want, what's in it for me. And I
Right.
think even New Orleans probably wouldn't have done that. I mean, we always had to, rent the space that we were doing the festival, and we never had a partner where they basically split the door with us, and we
That's
actually
wonderful.
we actually made money from the festivals instead of losing money. Um,
Which
not
keeps
much
them going
money.
longer.
So those who are listening, not much money. We don't make a lot of money. Trust me. Not yet, anyway. So hopefully, as we get bigger and bigger and we get some more sponsors and we get some more, people involved and more community support, we'll be able to do more and bring in more people, like, bring you in, help to cover costs to bring in journalists and, people from, and podcasters and all of that kind of stuff so that we can really, generate, a tremendous buzz about this festival because honestly, there are only four LGBTQ horror film festivals in the world that are focused solely on LGBTQ horror. There's a lot of horror film festivals that have an LGBTQ
Yeah.
block, and they're supportive of LGBTQ stories and filmmakers. And there's a lot of LGBTQ film festivals that have a horror block, but film festivals that are strictly horror and LGBTQ, there are four in the world, two in the United States. The other one is Queer Fear in North Carolina. And then the other two are Out for Blood and Soho, home that we've already talked about. So that's it, four.
Wow. So you're in not only rarefied kind of air as far as the just the volume of festivals, but also the focus. Because you're right, there are always blocks in support of, LGBTQ and queer horror. But they're, the dedication, and we're even seeing this within, Black community, right? Where they're becoming more explicitly Black focused genre festivals, and more kind of culturally focused ones so that we can start to create, because I think when it comes to genre, up until the internet, it was very hard to know where your people were. Because it was such it wasn't always the coolest thing to be a part of. People often would consider you weird or othered you for liking horror movies. But now the internet's made it so much easier to connect with people and find community that we can create more niche spaces. And you even have a guest of honor this year who's, pretty well known. I'd say if there was a horror Mount Rushmore, his name is arguably in the conversation, which is Don Mancini. So
Yeah.
how did you and Don kind of work out his presence this year?
I always felt that it was important to honor, basically queer filmmaking pioneers in the genre field. Our first year, we honored Sam Irving, who as a director, has directed over 50 films. But his biggest genre film is probably Elvira's Haunted Hills. But he is a huge supporter of the queer community and queer horror in particular. And so to honor him with the first, award, because we do the Queer Screams Career Achievement Award. And so we honored him the first year. And then the second year, we honored Joshua Grunell, aka Peaches Christ, for all that Joshua does for the community, for both horror and the queer community. And then, Don Mancini just was like the next step. He was always on my wish list.
Right.
But the TV show Chucky always kept him very busy.
Yes.
And there was, when Chucky got canceled, and I'm sorry that Chucky got canceled. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I praise the gods that Chucky got canceled, because if it wasn't, if he was still making Chucky, he would not be able to come to the festival. But yeah, so I was able to reach out to Don basically through Sam, and yeah, Don was just thrilled to be considered and honored in this way, and he's just been very, very sweet and giving of his time and his energy, and he's very excited to come up and support the festival and be involved. So I can't. Yeah, it's what they say in those reality TV show competitions. It's a dream come true.
I mean, it is though. I mean, I had while the truck, while the Chucky final series or final season was premiering, I had a chance to speak with Don, but I only had 7 minutes, and so I'm like, these are the best 7 minutes I'm going to have for the entire year, so I'm going to cherish them. But I'm sure that festival goers are going to be really just enthused by the fact to get to hear from Don and hear about his story, and also just the ways in which he has continued to pioneer representation with the Chucky TV series and the films. I think that there's something to be said about the work that he's done to not only improve the conversation, particularly around things like non-binary representation in horror, but also using his characters in ways that kind of provides a lot more of a space for everyone to feel included. And when you think about the experience for your festival goers, what is, for those that are going to be there in person, what are some of the things that they can expect? You mentioned some burlesque shows and some DJ sets, what other kinds of things do you have planned for folks throughout the weekend?
We've also kind of partnered up a little bit with Dots Cafe, which is a fantastic uh, bar and grill across the street from the Clinton Street Theater, to for them to host a VHS swap on that Saturday, August 2nd.
Oh,
So
fun.
they're going to have a lot of vendors there for VHS, also other horror memorabilia, T-shirts and things like that. So we coordinated with them to make sure that the VHS swap happened on that weekend of the festival, so that would be an additional something that the visiting filmmakers and the visiting people of the festival would be able to participate in. We also are having a after party on Saturday night after the festival, again over at Dots, and there's going to be live music and DJ over there as well. Spinning for at Dots, and yeah, we're also going to be trying to incorporate some local vendors in the festival itself. And inside the festival theater, inside the theater, we will have some vendors, selling, queer books, horror books, T-shirts, merchandise, VHS, and things like that. So, it's opportunities to have a little bit more of an experience than just coming and watching movies. It's not just about Queer Screams has never been about just coming to a movie theater and watching movies and leaving. It was always about hanging out, meeting people, discussing film, having other options, to do things, to see drag performances that you may not have seen, or find new drag artists in the community, find new burlesque artists in the community. This year one of our musical guests is Body Academics, who had a film a couple of years ago that was screened in our first season called um, oh my gosh, my brain has just completely fried. Ah, um, I hate when this happens, but that's all right. Body Academics is a fantastic, amazing musical group here in Portland. So it's being able to experience additional community-based artists and events in addition to finding new horror films from queer filmmakers.
Was it Evil Babylon by chance?
Yes! Oh my
Okay.
God. Don't tell
I'm
them
re
I forgot.
It's okay. I'm really good at the subtle Google, so it makes it sound like I know everything, but really I just have very fast fingers. But that I think what you've touched on is something quite that's missing in a lot of, as you said, like film festivals and also horror conventions, is that oftentimes horror conventions will have like a small film festival component to them, but the seats in there are always so awful. Like they're so uncomfortable, and you're often watching it on like a makeshift projection screen with poor sound. If assuming they even bring in something like a sound bar, sometimes you just get some really cheap speakers. And then at film festivals, you go in, you're right, it is very kind of a transactional experience of going in, going to the movie, especially if it's across multiple theaters where you're just pretty much bouncing around and waiting in line. So most of the interactions you get are when you're waiting in line or waiting for something to start. So it almost sounds like you get the best of both worlds, where you get a chance to kind of get the vendor experience and kind of, interact with some of the local artisans, but at the same time, you also get to watch some really kick-ass movies at the same time.
Yeah.
So I wish I was closer to Portland so I could make it out there, to be quite honest. Um,
Well,
now,
we
when
wish
you
you were making it out here as well.
It's
So,
next year. It's I've told my team that next year, if we can generate enough this year, we'll start to send some people out to some things, and so we could do some more in-person coverage. Because you're right, there is just so much more that comes from that in-person experience of getting to meet folks. And while from an accessibility standpoint, it's nice to have virtual options. You do miss some of that networking and that connection building that makes it one of those things you just don't forget. And when you think about the Portland horror community, I think something that only maybe folks within the area would know, but is this a community that is kind of really thriving, and did you see kind of growth year over year in regards to attendance, the festival, and awareness?
yeah. Well, this is only the third year for the festival, and I do expect this to be even more attended than the previous 2 years. I mean, obviously, I think the Don Mancini nights are going to sell out. Knock on some wood. That will happen. But yeah, it's been really supportive. I mean, there's already a lot of horror stuff up here. There's like a really popular horror trivia night that happens every Tuesday night or every other Tuesday night. And then of course there's Carla Rossi's queer horror series at the Hollywood Theater, which has been going on for 8 years or
Oh,
close to a
wow.
decade, 8 or 9 years. Um, really just quite popular. And what Carla does is really phenomenal. And I just am, really in awe of, what Carla puts together for the show because they do like a live presentation, a play basically before each of the screenings, and other local artists get involved with that as well, and it's quite amazing. So there's already a support of queer horror within the community itself, and Portland, with one of its, slogans, keep Portland weird. I mean, there's a lot of weirdness up here. There's a lot of weird people up here doing a lot of weird stuff. We just got a new great bar called Cult Classics up here that is basically a VHS themed bar. You know,
Oh, be still
and
my
they've
heart.
also, where they screen, VHS movies all the time when you're in there, and then they have like a movie night on Sunday nights where you can come and watch, a VHS movie and have beer and burgers. You know, so yeah, there's just a lot going on in the community up here that just both supports, cult cinema as well as the queer culture. Um, yeah.
I love to hear it. And you've put on a couple of you've put on festivals, two big festivals over the course of many years. I'm sure you've learned quite a bit about what works, what doesn't. So, what are some of the things that, through your experience, you found to be, if other people out there are thinking about trying to, start a festival or, are just curious about the process? What are some things that you found to be, really, really helpful as far as the planning and logistics goes, and also some things maybe people should avoid or things to maybe ensure you don't have as part of your program so that you can make it the best experience possible for all that attend.
hmm Well, the first thing I would say is basically don't bite off more than you can chew. Um, if you really feel, if you're in a community that cannot support, a weekend or a 3-day festival, then just do a 1-day festival. Start off with 1 day. Start off on a Saturday, and do a couple of shorts blocks and a feature film, you know. Um, but basically, a lot of it has to do with venue and location. Um, you know, just being able to find the right venue that will support the festival concept and also the venue that will support the festival. It's so much better if you can find a venue that is excited about having a festival there rather than just, having their hand open and saying, yeah, you can rent our theater. We don't want to have anything to do with it, but, there you go.
Right.
So that's definitely helpful. If you can find a venue space, it doesn't necessarily even need to be a movie theater. It could be, a live theater space with a screen, that comes down. Or, for a couple of years in NOLA, we had our festival in a Mardi Gras warehouse, which was, unique to the community. A Mardi Gras warehouse. What other film festival is going to have, is going to be
Right.
surrounded by Mardi Gras floats, where you're screening movies. So it's, trying to find something interesting within your community that will support, you know, people coming in for a film festival. And then the other thing I would say is if you can incorporate and include artists within the community, whether it be drag artists or performance artists or musicians or DJs or anything like that, that you can kind of like bring in so that you're creating more of a community event rather than just a bunch of screenings. So many film festivals are just that, just a bunch of
Yeah.
screenings, you know.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
to a certain extent, it's like, what's the point? If you're just going to go and watch a couple of movies and then, go home, you know. So it's trying to get the community involved, trying to get some other local artists involved, I think will definitely help. Um, and then, of course, setting things up with Film Freeway is pretty simple. They are they have certain guidelines and rules for first time film festivals, and so that you might have to jump through a couple of extra hoops as a first time film festival. But for the most part, signing up through Film Freeway and receiving submissions by film festivals is fairly easy. It's the difficult part is securing your venue, and then also trying to get people involved. The more people you get involved, um, the more they can help promote too. It's like if
Yeah.
you've got a musical artist that's really big in your community and they have a big following, they're going to follow that artist to your film festival.
Yeah, I mean, great advice because I think you're, especially in community engagement, because there's so much that comes from, it's kind of that shared uplifting of support that each other can bring. especially when you have, established followings. You're right. It's so easy just to bring those folks along because of that. And you've got an amazing program lined up. Some of the films I know we've seen in other festivals like Binary have done extremely well. Really excited to check out ones like the Prom Party Massacre and The Itch, and as well as How Far Does the Dark Go, we've been hearing some great things about. So it's an absolutely amazing program, and that's not even touching on the rest of the films you have planned, as well as the Don Mancini films you've got planned. So for folks that are on the fence of attending, you shouldn't be. And if you're looking to make sure you get your tickets, do so as soon as possible. It's going to be Friday, August 1st, runs through the weekend to the 3rd. And you definitely want to get it on those Don Mancini nights. But all these nights, really, to be quite honest, you have a Rocky Horror Picture Show on Saturday night. And that's one of the most fun things I've ever been to is a live performance of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah,
So,
and this particular because the Rocky Horror has been screening at the Clinton Street Theater for it's one of the longest running Rocky Horrors in the country.
oh wow.
Um, and they have, they don't do a live shadow cast every time, but the weekend of the film festival, there is going to be a live shadow cast. So there will be live actors performing the film in front of the film on the stage. So that's definitely something to experience.
Oh yeah. I mean, just especially for the virgins in the audience getting their chance to be deflowered before the show starts. So it's quite the experience. And JT, I just want to say thank you for your time to have this conversation. We're going to make sure that we include links for everyone to know where they can get their tickets when we post this. But is there anything else you'd like to share with anyone at this point about the festival yourself or what they can look forward to?
Um, Yeah, I mean, just continued growth within the community. I mean, obviously having, talking with you, Matt, about, the festival and, the plans and the growth and the community support that we want to do with the festival. Just getting the name out there, just, getting recognitions, getting people to go, oh yeah, I've heard of Queer Screams. Even that is, important. So, just getting our name on people's minds and on people's lips is a lot, and it's very important because just that amount of knowledge and understanding of what's out there is definitely going to still help the queer horror community. And submissions, if you're a filmmaker and you have made a movie, we'd love to see it. Submissions for next year open October 15th.
Oh, well, see, we'll make sure we let folks know that. And again, JT, so appreciate this conversation, and wish you not just the best of luck with this festival, but also for the rest of the events, because you've got more than this that you all are a part of, looks like on your calendar. So it's not just a once a year thing, it's more of an ongoing community collaboration. So thank you so much, JT.
Yes. One, if I have just
Oh,
one more
yes,
like 30
please.
seconds. In addition to when I was mentioning about film festivals, if you're interested in starting a film festival, not only getting the community involved, it's your festival being involved in the community year round. You can't just have one event every year and expect, everyone to show up. Get involved in your community. Get involved, with having, with special screenings. Try to find special screenings that you can co-host with your event or with your venue or with other artists who are doing special screenings or other like swap meets or VHS meets or we have it. There's a festival up here called Ghosts of Summer that happens. That's basically a Halloween convention that happens in July. Things like that. Get involved. Get a vendor table. Tell people about your festival. Don't just expect that if you do it once a year, people are going to just show up and knock on your door. You need to get involved in the community, and you need to kind of continue to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, you're right because Field of Dreams is full of shit. You don't just build it and people come. You have to build it and then make sure people know it's there and be a part of and contribute equally so there's reciprocity because you're right. It is the best community events that I've seen or even been a part of, the ones where everyone chips in and everyone is showing up at each other's events. So you see familiar faces, you get to grow those connections over time. So definitely something for folks to think about. And again, JT, it's been an absolute pleasure. Next year, you're going to see, I will see you out there in Portland for sure.
Excellent.